Vi her på Estadi Montilivi. Det en drøy time til avspark mellom Girona og Liverpool. Og før kampen så har vi fått møte selveste James Pearce i The Athletic, en av de mest kjente Liverpool-journalistene. James, you've been to many European away games. This might be one of the smallest grounds you've been to?
Yes, yeah, it really is. It does almost feel like being back in the Europa League because we're so used to going to, all the kind of big cathedrals of football all around Europe, and this is kind of more quaint surroundings at Girona, but obviously it's a huge deal for them to be in the Champions League, and we know that whenever Liverpool come to town, it means so much to all the people here.
Do you enjoy the smaller grounds or do you enjoy the bigger grounds?
Yeah, no, I think as long as the Wi-Fi works in this job, that's like the most important thing. As long as the Wi-Fi works, it's nice to go to new places. Like it's a beautiful city, Girona. Having a little wander around and seeing the cathedral today, and so it's nice to go to different places. I think obviously the new format of the Champions League has created a lot of discussion about is it really fair, the fact that you play different, everyone plays different teams rather than, obviously we were so used to the old structure of home and away. But I think the one positive is it does mean that you go to different places, this is certainly a first for Liverpool, and obviously a big one as well, because they want to get that top 8 finish absolutely done and dusted mathematically, so they can bypass that playoff round in February.
And that would be a great to get the top 8, to get some days off in February, of course. What do you think they can achieve this season?
Well, at the moment, I think the sky's the limit, really, because top of the Premier League, top of the Champions League, beyond anyone's expectations. When you think back to the summer, and like most Liverpool fans, I was thinking probably a period of transition for the club, having lost someone so iconic as Jurgen Klopp, but Arne Slot has just been an absolute revelation. And yes, he was lucky to inherit a really talented group of players, but what he's done tactically with them, how he's the man management side of things has been extraordinary to take them to the next level and revive the fortunes of a number of players who had lost their way a little bit towards the end of the Klopp reign. So at the minute, I mean, when you've beaten the champions of Germany, you've beaten the champions of Spain, you've beaten the champions of England, as Liverpool have done in the last couple of months, you think, well, why can't they win one of the biggest prizes this season? Because sometimes opportunities present themselves that you just didn't expect.
And what's Arne Slot been like compared to your expectations? Not only as a manager, but speaking to him in the press conference and interviews.
Yeah, I think what's impressed me the most is his authenticity. I really liked, even from the very first press conference he did at the start of July, I thought he was very genuine. He didn't try and be someone he's not. Which I think is so important, because I think Liverpool fans would see through it if someone was trying to put on a facade or a front. And I think he struck a really good balance between being really respectful to Klopp and everything that Klopp had achieved, but also backing himself to succeed. And he's made some cute changes, I think, tactically, especially the structure of the midfield, which has made Liverpool a lot harder to play through. You look through the squad in terms of people like Kanate, I'd say Szoboszlai, Diaz would be 3 good examples of players who he's really tapped into their potential and got them back to where we know they can play. And from dealing with him media-wise, he's very Dutch in terms of very matter-of-fact, very straight to the point. And he's probably at his best in terms of dealing with the media when he's talking about tactical things, because you can see he loves talking about football. What he doesn't like talking about is transfers, is about contracts, and is about injuries. So if you keep away from those subjects, then he's good value.
I don't know if you've been asking him about the contracts, but that's what everyone wants to know. And The Athletic wrote a few days ago that an offer has been made to Salah and Van Dijk, I believe. What can you tell us about the situation now?
Yeah, well, we know now that all 3 players, there's been so much talk over, Van Dijk, Salah and Alexander-Arnold, have now all had contract offers. I was one of the reporters that spoke to Salah down at Southampton a few weeks ago, when he clearly wanted to get something off his chest, because he very rarely speaks to the English written media. I think that was only the 3rd time he'd stopped in 7.5 years of being at Liverpool. And of course the standout line then was, he said, I haven't had a formal offer. So we understand now that has changed. I think a lot of people would say probably about time. What were they waiting for? But of course, that's not the end of the process. I think people shouldn't get confused between just because he's had an offer, it doesn't mean he's going to accept that offer. And in fact, it's very rare that anyone would ever accept a first offer anyway, because there's a negotiation process going on there. So, we understand that those discussions with all three are ongoing. Everyone wants certainty, but at the minute, we don't have certainty.
3 weeks to go until the 1st of January. What do you think will happen? Will we keep all of them, none of them, or some of them?
I think it's really, really difficult to call. I've always said all the way from the start I thought Van Dijk would stay, and I still think if I was betting any money, he would be the one out of the three that I would be really confident of staying. I'd say the other two, almost 50-50. I'd say. I think Salah has made it clear that he wants to stay, but of course the caveat to that is he wants a contract that recognises his status in world football, and he believes he is still right up there with the best players in the world, and it's very difficult to argue with that assessment when he's producing the numbers he has done so far this season. With Alexander-Arnold, we know there's strong interest from Real Madrid, but when I asked him a couple of months ago when he spoke about his future, he said the biggest thing for him was going to be trophies. And of course, if you're top of the Premier League and the top of the Champions League, why would you want to go anywhere else? So, and I thought what's been promising for me with Trent is he's been so kind of buoyant about working with Slot and about how Slot has helped him improve defensively, and he's talked about Slot basically asking Slot to be his biggest critic. So the one thing I would say with the January the 1st date is what from people I've spoken to connected with the process, nobody sees January the 1st as like some cut-off point where if it doesn't get sorted out before then, that means they're destined to leave. In fact, I got told recently that those players, well, certainly Van Dijk and Salah, at the moment it's just not in their thoughts talking to other clubs, because their priority is to try and get an agreement with Liverpool. So until that agreement has been reached, of course there's no guarantees, but I think probably 2 out of the 3 will stay. I'd love to see all 3 stay. That would be, if I was in charge of the purse strings, I would be doing everything I possibly could to keep all 3, because I think even just losing one of them would be some huge boots to fill.
Yeah, and it would be maybe naive to think that Real Madrid hasn't been in touch with Trent's representatives, and I think he's the one most people are worried about right now. What do you think?
Yeah, I think it makes sense that he's the one that most are worried about, because for lots of reasons really. Probably his age, he's the age of 26, he's coming into his prime, while Van Dijk and Salah are in the twilight years of their career. I think from a business point of view, of course, everyone knows that Trent's probably the most valuable of the 3 in terms of his market value. He's a £100 million footballer for me. It would be mad if Real Madrid or any other top European club for that matter wasn't seriously interested in Alexander-Arnold, because you ask yourself, if there was a Spanish version of Trent who was about to become a free agent, every top English club would be desperately trying to sign him. And I think that is, of course, that's food for thought for Trent, because we know his best mate in football is Jude Bellingham. I don't think that's like a kind of decisive factor in it, but I'm sure that's all part of the decision-making process. You look at that star-studded Real Madrid team, and yes, they haven't had the brilliant start to the season, but when you've got players of the calibre of Vinicius Jr. and Mbappe, you're going to come back strong. Yeah. I think that's the big decision for Trent, isn't it? Ultimately, he's got to decide, does he want the kind of legendary status that was bestowed on people like Gerrard and Carragher, because they committed, in Gerrard's case, almost his entire career, in Carragher's case, it was his entire career, to Liverpool? Or does he want to go and sample something new? And of course, if he does walk away from Liverpool, then that does, it doesn't damage his legacy in terms of he's still a legend of the club, but he won't be on that same level as those who committed so much more of their careers to the cause.
Will you try to get a hold of them, any of them, after tonight's game? Perhaps an opportunity with a small stadium?
Yeah, I mean, hopefully be in the mix zone trying to get some interviews after this one. But obviously at the moment it's quite rare for any of them to want to talk, because I think they know that the conversation will inevitably turn to their futures. And as Salah showed a few weeks ago, sometimes they want to get stuff off their chest. But certainly with Van Dijk, I think he's been incredibly dignified throughout the whole process in terms of he hasn't wanted to talk about it. He was asked about it again last week when I was there, and he shut the conversation down straight away because he just doesn't want any distractions to what Liverpool are trying to do at the minute. And of course, when Slot's asked about it, because he's only the head coach, he's not the manager, he can quite understandably say, it's not my department, because this is a process being led by the sporting director Richard Hughes.
Tonight's game, to finish off, important for Girona, of course. Not only one of the biggest games in the history of the club, but also they have to get through. Do you think it's as important for Liverpool?
I think it's important, probably not in terms of prestige, but I think it's important for Liverpool in terms of maintaining momentum, because I think what you really want to see from Liverpool tonight is having that what was it, a 6-day break between games because of the Merseyside derby being called off. You want to see the benefits, you want to see Liverpool fresh and energised and full of desire and stamping their authority on this game and quietening the crowd early on, because that was the one worry for me at Newcastle. I didn't have a problem with, as much as it was frustrating to concede late on, a draw at Newcastle is not a bad result, especially when you look at their home record this season. But what did worry me was Liverpool looked tired, and I thought the physical and mental demands of that run of games previously, especially the ones against Real Madrid and City, had taken a bit of a toll. I think Gravenberch especially looked tired for the first time this season. So I want to see, hopefully, the benefits of that Merseyside derby being off. And you also want to see Liverpool confirming their place in that playoff round as soon as possible. I mean, it's almost a foregone conclusion when you look at, they got Lille and PSV Eindhoven to come, and with the greatest respect to those teams, Liverpool should be beating both of them. But of course, the quicker you can get it done, it does just give Slot that bit of respite, because he is going to have to juggle his resources. And yeah, we hope the injury situation is starting to clear. Brilliant to see Alisson back out there tonight. But yeah, getting that qualification completely certain will just mean he can have a few more options in terms of, I think, probably prioritising a few Premier League games over the coming weeks.
Yeah, perfect. Thanks a lot for taking your time, James, and we look forward to more news coming up. Thank you.